Hello, hello, everyone. Kenyon here. Basketball Rewind. Another week in, another week out. We're getting that much closer to basically the lottery. I'm just kidding, folks. Don't worry. For you Raptors fans, just so you know, we did go through the week. We are going to recap the week. And it's really easy to do it because we got 0 wins. Um, we lost in the Rockies against the Denver Nuggets. We lost against the Kings, and we had 2 losses against LA teams. I do want to talk a little bit at some point about the Intuit Dome experience from a outsider's perspective watching on TV, because that was a very interesting watch. We will get to that in a second. I do want to point out that we are now 10 games into the season. So we are now 1/8 through the season. We're not going to look at standings because it's a little early, but we did have predictions on Basketball Rewind. I will link the descriptions down below. I might, if I have time, put it on the screen, but I'm going to probably link it down below. So it'll just be a little bit easier and you all can go to that video. But Beyond and Coach, who I am assuming are doing well, hello, gentlemen. They predicted 2-8, and I predicted 3-7. Well, if we look at the record today, what does it look like, guys? Beyond?
It is what it is, man. 2-8.
Yeah.
I
Now,
think
I got to 3-7 because I had several games that were push that could have went either way, so I felt optimistic. The other two people who are joining me today, they were not as optimistic on those pushes. We did get the Kings game correct because we all basically said that would be a 1-1 type of situation. I do think that there are things to glean from the first 10 games to whet people's appetite. We're going to start positive. We're going to go with Ochai. Ochai has had an incredible turnaround this season. We've seen third-year players, and talked about them, struggle at Summer League. It's usually not a good sign. I think plenty of people were concerned about him basically playing his way out of the league. He has now played his way into having his contract for next year, the option exercised, and it's looking pretty solid, is what I will say. He is an NBA player for sure at this point. It looks like it. So I want to dig a little bit into the numbers before I tag you guys in. I'm gonna just ignore the point totals and just look at the percentages. He still can't shoot above the arc, so I'm gonna ignore that for now. But from the corners last year, he was shooting around, nothing was above 35% from the corners, and around at the rim, I think he was shooting around a league average at best, maybe a little bit below league average at 55%. This year, he's converting at the rim at almost 70%, 68%, and from the corners, depending on which corner you're looking at, it is 54 and 69% respectively, which is really impressive to have that bounce back. But also, he's shooting well above league average. We see that he does a few things. He simplified his game really nicely, whether it's Darko or otherwise. He's being utilized, as well as he has grown his game in the right way for him, which is cut any of the in-between game and just get 2 things down, 2 skill sets that are transferable to NBA teams, and get them well. And that would be spot up corner shooting and cutting to the hole when your man is not paying attention to you. You do that and play some defense, you're doing just fine. Any thoughts? Yeah, I'm going to actually go to Coach on this one. First, any thoughts on Ochai before we move on to our next topic? And Beyond, I want to hear from you as well about this.
I partially have to eat crow on this. After what I saw in Summer League, it did not look promising. He was the fourth or fifth option on Summer League with a bunch of rookies. He didn't look good at all. Now, I do think with his development through the summer, with the injuries to the team. He never had a choice but to get an opportunity, and he has made the most of it. He's shooting 48% three on the year, which is the highest on this team by about 12%, which is very, very good. I did not see that coming. He's averaging about 14 points. He's about 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and he's leading the team in steals if you don't count Scotty's number, because Scotty's is a very small sample size. So credit to Ochai Abaji and credit to, I guess I'll say, Darko's staff and putting him in the correct positions. I know sometimes we talk about some of the other players who we feel are not in the correct positions, but I think they've really simplified his game. Go to the corners and shoot, guard, and make back cuts. And that seems to be working for him so far. It's not that he's doing too much on the floor. If anything, you might be able to ask him to do a slight bit more on offense because this team is, in terms of shot creators right now, we're quite limited. Not to say that he becomes one, but he's shown some flashes where he can get his own shot off a little bit compared to some of the others on the team. So I really credit his development this summer. And also his confidence. You could just tell he's playing with way more confidence because he's going to play. So that trade, which with him and Olynyk for more or less Otto Porter and what turned into be Isaiah Collier, looks like Ochai has he's lived up to it so far. We'll see.
Beyond, your thoughts?
I would say I agree with everything what Coach said. My only caveat would be is even though right now May's worked his way to be a bench player in the NBA, he still has a lot of work to do only because of his size and what position he plays. He's 6'4" when it's all said and done. Quite honestly, there are a dime a dozen in the NBA guys that maybe can hit decent from the corners. So like this doesn't guarantee all of a sudden he's going to get a contract from the Raptors or anyone else because of just the fact that guys like him are pretty much all around the league. I mean, in some form or fashion. Heck, Markelle Fultz still can't find a job. And I think anyone would say Markelle Fultz is a better player than Ochai Abaji. But the same height, same size, but has a slightly different skill set in this case here. But, he's still looking for work and a few others like that. So, I just pull the brakes back a bit, but props to him. I will say all I say is this is what it looks like when I say development and it should pop. This is what I'm talking about. So props to the Abaji. This is what I'm referring to. You see it immediately. It's not something you wait for the year to say, oh, it's going to come. If the guy's put in the work, sufficiently to kind of get the results that you expect. So good on him.
Now, before we go any further, we talked about the week that just passed. We should talk about the week ahead. The NBA Cup is upon us, which is exciting. We have 2 games, back-to-back games. Not back-to-back on the actual calendar, but back-to-back games. That would be the Bucks, your Pistons. Then after that, non-cup games are resumed. We face the Celtics and the Pacers right after. Sorry, I added an extra game. The Pacers game comes Monday, so 3 games this week. What do you see the schedule giving to the Raptors as a gift, an early Christmas gift, we'll say?
I say 0-3. I don't think they get the Pistons game. I watched Milwaukee play Boston yesterday. It's not perfect, but you can see elements of it coming together where they should start beating bad teams and mediocre teams again. And then, I think that's what's going to happen. Plus, we have absolutely no matchup for their front line. None. So, so I don't see how we're slowing that down.
You don't think we can steal one against in Beantown?
And be So the Detroit game is what it comes down to. Like we have at home. Detroit's been playing pretty solid so far.
The Thompson twin is now cleared to play.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
I'm excited for him because he had a blood clotting issue and now that's been cleared. Always happy to see someone be able to get back on the court and see their dreams through. So yeah.
I just say Detroit. I would say Detroit's not easy out. Let's put it that way. So I don't know if I like your chances on that front either. Just the fact that Detroit could put up points from different areas. I mean, last year Durant had like a personal best, I think, in rebounding against us. He's gonna be licking his chops. That's the type of schedule when you're sitting there as the opposing team and looking at, oh, I can get PBs on these guys tonight. That's the type of thing starts happening when you get in this type of phase. So yeah, 0-3 for me. Sorry.
So, Coach, I'm curious what you're thinking.
Similar to Beyond the Milwaukee game, we don't have the guys in the front court to match up with Giannis, Lopez, or Portis. We got Pirtle. That's it. And Lopez is going to stand outside and shoot threes. Giannis is going to relentlessly attack the rim because Milwaukee, they're in trouble. And they're
Yep.
going to play like they are in trouble. And I just don't know if we'll be able to match up with that with all their experience. And there's still Dame Lillard on the other side too, who can get hot. So I'm going to say Milwaukee. I think if we were to get one, it would be Detroit. I know that's at home, but Cade Cunningham, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. I'm very happy that he's back and he's healthy. He looks great. He always plays well against Toronto. It's beyond said Duran last year. Probably, I think he had one game, he had like 20 rebounds when Pirtle was playing. So, and Tobias Harris, whenever he sees Toronto, it's good for 20 at least. I just don't trust us. I just don't know if we're going to take down Detroit. And I say 0-3 because I don't know if we're winning until Scotty comes back. And I say that because you need him and you need the size. You can't, it's as well as Obaji's playing. When you go up against some of these big front lines and he's guarding someone 6'8" or 6'9", you're at a deficit. You just are. You get one 7-footer on the team. That 7-footer is not exactly um, Nick Richards or Joel Embiid physically. Let's just put it that way.
RJ moved from playing the two guard position in New York to playing power forward for us.
Pretty much. Yeah. No, we're at a complete deficit. And again, you're not I don't know if I see us winning a game until Scotty comes back. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, we're about to find out. Uh, I do know that some people think that we could steal a couple games here and there now that we're getting healthier, slowly but surely. What I'm noticing is that we have a couple challenges. I think that it's a good thing to kind of get into, but I'll give my prediction for this week, and yeah, I think it's an 0-3 week. Milwaukee, you guys. I mean, I don't even have to talk about Boston, but Milwaukee is like a wounded animal. And wounded animal who's cornered typically fights for its life.
Mm.
And they are fighting hard. I mean, Giannis is putting up 40, what was it, 43 and 12. And, when he's doing that and he's playing like that, it's kind of hard. He gives himself a chance. I mean, they were up against Boston, I think the last game that they played. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Like, they're talent-wise, people can say what they want about Dame or whatever. They're better talented team than us. They're also not healthy, so they will continue to get better and better when Middleton solves a lot for them when he's healthy from a perimeter defense standpoint and other factors like shot creation a little bit. Not the best, but he's certainly a lot better than sometimes what they have in terms of two-way play on the perimeter. Detroit's the interesting one. We're injured. They're not. They have people coming back. It's a bit of a litmus test for where we are because in theory, even without Scotty, Raptors fans before the season would have suggested that we were still more talented than Detroit. I don't think we are.
Neither.
But we about to find out because you'll see, for example, does someone like an Ivy outplay a Quickly? Right? these are going to be interesting things to watch for. Other than that, when those games are done, look forward to the next week. I guess so. 1 week up, 1 week down. All right. So now that we're done with that, I think it's very interesting to look at two things. Darko made some comments about Gradey and RJ and how defenses are keying in on them, and how he went to them and said, like, that's what you want. Now, some people took a little bit of umbrage with that. I actually think it's actually quite honest. He's right. That is what you want. That's exactly what you want. The question is, what's next? Now, Darko went on to kind of suggest that the team needs to be better. This is where I push back a little bit. The team's doing what they can at times. I mean, Ochai is playing out of this world to the point where, like, you know, for his capabilities, like, I can't ask for more from Ochai. So what we really need to do is kind of move towards a situation where when someone's cooking, you feed them the ball. Right now, as currently constructed and based on the current health status of the team relies heavily, and even when everyone's healthy, on Gradey's shot-making ability. He's currently one of the only people who can get his shot off at all three levels, although he does need some help to get to those spots so that he can do that. That's why you see him do a lot of movement off ball, a lot of cuts. And I will say, to Darko's credit, they have used a lot of off-ball screens, although I will also credit Gradey for recognizing when to use those screens and when to run his man through those screens to help himself. But there are times where I'm pushing back on the coaching staff and saying, you need to feed him more. If he's going 50% from the floor and shooting 10 shots, and he's 5 of 10, and he's one of the only guys who can consistently get to the line, the second half of the game, he shouldn't only get 2 shots or no shots. He should be shooting more than Davion Mitchell on a regular basis. It's no shade to Davion Mitchell. This is what it is. He is more integral to the future because of his talent that he has. Anyone want to have thoughts on that? Coach, I'll go to you, because I guess Darko is a coach.
Well, in terms of Gradey, you made a spot on point how they still seem to have an issue on him getting his shots early, but it's the middle of the game and it's the end of the game where they seem to have problems on getting him the ball. But also, he sits for a long, long time. I've noticed that. He'll sit half of a third quarter and then half of the fourth quarter. You're looking at about 12 minutes there where he said 12 minutes playing time that he's sitting. And of course there's other extra added time with timeouts and the end of the quarters and stuff like that. And Brady right now, I tweeted it out, he's the best shot creator on the team. I don't know. I want that guy sitting as long as Darko has him. Grady's averaging about 32 minutes a game right now. You know, with all the injuries, he probably should be having an extra couple minutes a game. I don't see how that would hurt him. You're willing to fail with your best players. I don't know, like you said, I want to be relying on Davion Mitchell and Pirtle to try to win us games versus Grady Dick or RJ Barrett. I'm willing, or Scotty when he comes back, or quickly for that matter. I'm willing to live with those guys failing because they're your best players. So I want to see Grady just getting a bit more time and a few more touches. It doesn't have to be always through movement actions for him getting the ball. Even if it's just something simple where there's two couple of screens just to get him the ball, and then let's see if he can create something for himself. It's always through an action of Grady getting the ball and catching and shooting. That's great. Don't get me wrong. I know he can do that. I want to see a bit more, like in ISO. What can he do? Let's find out.
Question: couldn't you just, one of the ways is use him in screening action, specifically ghost screens, because he doesn't have the biggest body in the world, to like kind of get him open with guys like RJ. I don't really see them using that as much as I would like. I could be wrong though, so feel free to correct me.
No, there's multiple ways that he's just got to get the ball more in his hands. Like we're at the point now, I want to see the ball in RJ's hands and Grady's hands, and now that he's come back in Quickly's hands. That's what you. Those are your three best players right now. But we play through our fifth option a lot.
Now, I know you want to talk about that, but I'm going to tag Beyond in really quickly, and then we'll go back to that fifth option point in just a second, because I do also want to talk about RJ with this. Before I get to you, Beyond, I'll just add that RJ too, he is he's not struggling with getting the ball. That's for sure. In a way, it's kind of like the Scotty thing, where there are times when I want Scotty to get the ball more, but like Scotty is starting with the ball. So he's the decider of his own destiny. Gradey is not that decider right now. RJ has that decision, but one of the things that RJ needs to do is he needs to recognize when now, this goes back to some of the struggles in New York, when to pass the ball, when it's not just going to be about effort, right? As defenses now key in on you, chase you off screens, we'll get to the IQ in a second, and do certain things to kind of make you uncomfortable, that's when you have to build the counters. And if you go back on Basketball Rewind to when we got RJ, and I've been saying the whole time, he doesn't really have a mid-range, and that's where he gets stuck. And so, and we don't have Shea on this team, it's not Team Canada. So that's, it's good that he can still find ways to effort through enough to generate some form of an offense. But there are times when I'm looking at drives with both New York guys. Again, I'll get to IQ in a second, where there are open guys out on the corner and they are not viewing it that way, and they are missing out on open shots that are better shots for a guy like Gradey, and sometimes even Ochai at the rim.
Well, I'll keep it short and sweet. I mentioned this last year. I now have more evidence now to kind of make my claim on my case even stronger. This will not change, folks. Darko is who he is. Darko's philosophy is that he believes in 1-5 pick and rolls or 1-5 DHOs. Period. So when you ask yourself, like, how come Davion Mitchell's taking all these shots besides Gradey? I remember having these discussions last year on this same show. Wondering how we have quarters in this case where Siakam and Scotty not seeing the ball, and we got Shooter out there just jacking up shots. You remember that? The great shooter of it all? And now here we are now, not even 10 games in, and we're here scratching our head here. Is like, what are we doing here with Davion Mitchell and Pirtle? Just dead possession after dead possession after dead possession. Now, I'll let my friend here discuss the center, but I think overall, when I look at this team, the offensive concept is so flawed on so many levels, it's not even funny. I hear these Raptor fans talking about, oh, they're not getting the calls. You've built your offense to be a jump shooting team. What do you expect? Like, that's just a fact. You don't run any post ups, that gets you fouls. You don't run any ISOs, that can get you fouls. You don't run anything even in the mid range you want to that could possibly get you fouls. So how do you expect to get fouls? But shooting 17-foot shots, if that's the case. Besides RJ just putting down his hand and just driving in the hole and hoping to get a foul, there's not many people are generating fouls in this case on this team. So don't cry for me, Argentina, about Zach Zarba or Tony Brothers. It got nothing to do with any of them. The fact is, it's a flawed concept. And if you have a flawed concept like that, unless you have a very dominant center, oh yeah, like Jokic perhaps, where he could just go and just pound a guy inside when he's ready and draw fouls that way. No one's respecting your team in this case here to go and draw fouls on you. So it's not anything to do with, oh my gosh, you don't like us, you don't like Toronto. It's nothing to do with that. Your offense is flawed from the beginning. And that's the reason why you're not getting to the free throw line. So that's my point when it comes to Darko. I don't see anything changing. He could do a lot of sweet talk about it, but he's going to do the same thing tomorrow night. So, I'm going to see a bunch of Davion Mitchell DHOs here and Giannis swatting into the fourth row. So yeah, that's
So
why.
offensively, I think has the best case for the excuse of injuries, because I know a lot of people use injuries for the defense. I don't buy that, to be perfectly honest, because we were actually, by way of the injuries, fielding our best defensive lineup. But in terms of offense, there is an argument to say, like, if we're fully healthy, there, if Jacoby's there, if Scotty's there, that it is potentially better. What do you say to that?
So here's what I say. Sometimes simplicity is the best way to go. And what I mean by that is going back to your point there, and coach was making the point of getting Gradey the ball. At times last night, Gradey was getting played by Gabe Vincent.
Mhm.
Gabe Vincent's about 6'3". How about this? How about you just post Gradey up for about 12 feet out instead of him running around like a head cut off every second trying to get him the ball?
And just so if people missed the game, how tall is Gabe Vincent?
About 6'3",
Okay.
6'2",
And how tall is Gradey?
6'7", 6'8" in shoes.
There you
Like,
go.
he never mastered post up game like it's a Akeem Olajuwon. Just need
Yeah.
to shoot over. And so we running around, God coming from this side and that side, zipping off. Sometimes just like, dude, just post him up at the elbow and let
Yeah.
the kid do what he gotta do. And I just sit here and shake my head, man. Like Darko tries to make things so complex sometimes. It doesn't need to be complex sometimes.
Yeah. Um, Coach, I'll go to you, and then this loops really well into an IQ point as well, because Darko did mention that Grady is being missed on some cuts, and he's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
But as a coach, then that's when it's a good time to call a timeout, resettle your offense, and say this is where the ball needs to go. Coach, your thoughts?
Well, there always seems to be levels that you have to hit with Darko before you get something else in this offense. That's what I've somewhat noticed. Brady Dick has been this player. Obviously, maybe not the strength that he has now, not the agility that he has now, because he's doing NBA training per se versus college training. But we've seen this from him to some degree in college. But last year we couldn't do that because he had to go do a 2 week training program with a 905, which he didn't do anything down there, by the way. But they had to bring him back up because of the injuries, and then they finally gave him an opportunity, took advantage of it. I just find that there's always levels that a player has to hit with Darko before we give them more exposure. I fear next year if you have a high pick, if this is a Cooper Flag or a Dylan Harper or an Ace Bailey, like are they going to have to go through levels too if they're really good, or do you just let them go cook? Show us what you got. Anthony Edwards could do that in Minnesota. I'm not so much trying to compare those guys to Anthony Edwards, but there was a platform for him to do that with a Karl-Anthony Towns, by the way.
I mean, we talked about it before, like some of the reps that Scotty was starting to get, which are really ugly reps, but like those are the reps. I'll shout out what it do, but we've also said it here on this podcast, to be perfectly honest. I think I've actually personally even said it specifically. It's like these are the reps that Scotty needs to get. I said that when he was struggling. I said, like, look, this is my critique of him, but this is what you need to do to see if he is that good, right? You have to give guys the reps in different ways, especially when they're cooking. It's a little bit of a reward too. Um, it's good to have like a plan, but everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth, right? And then what do? And we need to have better ways of adjusting mid-game. I like both offensively and defensively, and we're not really doing that. It's like, oh, you see Grady, he's struggling because he has DeRozan on. Oh, well, you know what? We're gonna put Shane Battle or Jamie Battle or whatever, who basically has the same metrics and the same challenges that Grady does on DeRozan, right? I like, can we do a pre-switch? Can we do something else? Like, I don't really, from a defensive standpoint, I know we talked about it a little bit last week, so I won't harp on it this week. But even offensively, it's like, okay, like if you see something's going well, like I'm not saying you just got to mismatch Hunt to the point of being Nick Nurse. That's the other end of the scale. But went from one extreme to the next, and you have to find one way. Now, I will say one thing: Yes, he has gotten better. He has admitted his mistakes, and he is developing as a coach. Will he have enough time to develop it when it's all said and done? I don't know, because one thing we do know, and I'll go to you next, Beyond, the media does tend to, especially when you have a top 4 pick that's coming in, just like how we had a top 4 pick recently, there's a lot more pressure of why is Ace Bailey being, playing off the bench or something like that, where it's like, yeah. Now, if the guy comes in and don't want to say trash, but he's not playing well, fair enough. If you draft Anthony Bennett or something like that and he's not working well, fair enough. But if the guy's looking good, he probably is going to want the reps, and there's going to be pressure on the media side to get the reps. Beyond, you were going to say something.
I just want to mention, it's ironic that he was playing the guy on the other side. It was giving all these cute plays with LeBron on his podcast, floppy and this and that. But when you know what last night, what do? LeBron, put your big caboose right there to post up,
Yeah.
and we're going to go to work from there, okay? And you figure out what to do. All the
Yep.
cute floppy and this and that, the next thing, and horns and all that stuff was out the door.
Yeah.
My point is, when it gets to winning time, sometimes you just got to keep it simple.
Well,
And,
what does Darko do? Right? I mean, seriously, when the game gets down to it, everyone complained. You pointed this out. Everyone complained about too much ISO, but we give it to one of 2 people so far. We have not really given it to Scotty to ISO. It's kind of understandable. No offense. RJ and apparently Jakob Pertl. Does that make sense? If you are
injuries.
like coach, explain that to me. Explain the Clippers ending to me.
So I get a lot of feedback from fans because I voiced my displeasure on that out of bounds timeout, not once but twice.
In a row.
Grady Dick in a row. Grady Dick, the best free throw shooter on the team. RJ at that time was averaging 25 game and quickly had brought us back in the game. What does this staff do? Let's go to Darko when you're down 3 and you need a 3-pointer and there's only 4 or 5 seconds left on the shot clock or on the game clock, excuse me. When people say we're tanking, this is not tanking. Do you know what this is? This is incompetence. This is incompetence at its finest. When you go to your 5th option at the end of the game when you're down 3 points, who has never taken a 3-point shot in his NBA career. You could not run one quick play for Gradey or Quickly or even RJ to get a 3 off. I think that would have been a bit better in that situation since you're down 3 points. And maybe you get lucky if there is a miss and you're able to tap it back out. Probably not enough time. But what they did, not once, but twice, was straight incompetence. And it was completely frustrating. I wasn't the only one. William Blue had also said the same thing. He's like, this doesn't make any sense. Other contributors I've seen, like on his show or Raptors Republic, have said the same thing. This has to be better. Where nobody has these crazy expectations, or if you do, you shouldn't, for this team. We all know the team is going to be bad. And being last in the league doesn't necessarily guarantee you a number 1 pick. Ask Atlanta about that last year. They made the play-in, and they still got the number 1 pick.
Ask Detroit.
Ask Detroit as well for multiple years. You have not had the number 1 pick except for Cade. So there's tanking, and then there's incompetence. Well, sorry, there's tanking, and then there's like we're actually going to try to win this game with our best players. Beyond, this is kind of a question for you a little bit. You've been watching basketball longer than the 2 of us. Have you ever heard of a 5th option having the ball as much as Pirtle has in an offense?
I've never seen anything like it.
I've never seen anything like it. Yeah.
I think, and the thing is, if you're going to say, okay, I need a 3, when the ideal option would be Boucher, who actually can hit a 3 if you're going to play someone at the 5.
Sure.
The logical option to put out there on the court with the other guys so every individual out there can shoot a 3. Even let's say it this way, even if you get to one of the other guys, what are you going to do with Pirtle out there? Everyone's just going to hawk the ball and leave Pirtle alone. So you're playing 4-on-5. Even if you got the ball into one of the other players, it makes no sense at all sorts of different things.
So I have a question. Do you have one? Give me two other examples of a fifth option in the NBA.
I mean, the only thing I could think of that'll come close to it in that scenario
Not using his usage, just fifth options.
would be in this case here. Look at the team I'm about to mention. The 2016-2017 Golden State Warriors.
Okay, but
Right.
I mean today, name another team who was their fifth option. Give me like two random fifth options.
Random fifth options. Okay. So the Lakers' fifth option right now would be if everyone's healthy on the court,
Rui?
probably.
So
Rui touched the
Rui,
ball more than LeBron James or Anthony Davis?
Rui Hachimura. Okay, and one other one. I know I'm giving you this isn't great for dead air, but
Gobert, maybe?
Gobert would be another one.
I think Rudy Gobert is probably the easiest one to kind of look at because there are times when Rui can punch up a little bit here and there.
Lively.
Yeah, Lively's another good one.
Lively Gafford, that kind of thing, depending on who's starting.
So, yeah, Rudy Gobert, we'll start with him, has a usage of 13%. Okay. Derek Lively, right? Derek Lively the second, I should say, to be more specific, beyond one of his teams. His usage is around 14%. Last year was 13%. Rui, again, it's early this year. It is early. Sometimes punches up to say 16%, but yeah. Pirtle at times is up to 20% and punches down a little bit to 18%. Some of these numbers are close, you have to dig into them, but Pirtle's on the higher end of the scale is my point. And there's a case to be said that what if people are confused by what we're arguing for and advocating for, it's to give the young guys more development. It's the thing that people have complained about for years, but now for whatever reason, they're now switching up.
So Pirtle now has become Derek White.
Yeah, well, although Derek White is involved in way more actions, but
That's my point.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. He's only a guy that's like a super for the Olympics.
Sorry, I just had a headache.
Yeah. That's what we're comping him to. I'm sure if you look at Derek White's numbers, I'm sure it's around that area.
Yeah. Not ideal.
Yeah, no, unbelievable.
I just think that it's sorry, Coach, you were saying.
Before our audience thinks that we're picking on Pirtle, it's not Pirtle. He's not the issue.
Derek White has 20% usage.
Bingo.
But sorry,
Bingo.
go on.
Yeah.
Sorry, Coach.
Bingo.
Sorry.
There you go.
Your boy might know this sport. Bingo.
It's not Pirtle's not the issue. He's having the best year of his career so far, which
really
is saying
is.
something good for him. But I've never heard of a fifth option. I've never heard of the ball being run through a center that like him, who's not Nikola Jokic, who's not Bam, who's not Joel Embiid. Like they're different players. I get it, but I like to see Scotty with the ball kind of in those situations that the Pirtle gets it in. I never saw that with Nick. Nick Nurse used him mainly as a screen and roll to open up a bit more for Fred. And then Pirtle, he's a good screener. I'll give him that. He's a really good screener. He's pretty good at rolling to the basket, and he's got a little floater there that works sometimes, but it's just the offense, like Beyond said. It's this 1-5 offense. We saw it last year. It was Dennis Schroeder and Pirtle. I saw the very first game preseason last year because I came on and spoke to you guys. I said, did Pirtle get the keys to the city or something? I've never seen him with the ball so much in my life. This was last year, first game preseason. I noticed this.
I'll say this.
Yeah.
No, I just want to your Nick Nurse example. The problem with Pirtle is because Pirtle is so inept offensively, be it coaches, be it it's Nick Nurse or Darko, they have to find some way to try to make him
Involved.
involved or relevant. So be if it's a pick and roll heavy offense like Nick Nurse, where we're sitting here going like that's where I made the joke is like Pascal become Klay Thompson, Pascal Klay Thompson, just sitting in the corner as we ran about 30 pick and rolls with Fred all day long. Because that's the only way you can use Pirtle in this case to make him anywhere near effective on offense. So that might be a problem overall in this case. Maybe the guy shouldn't be actually be a guy getting that much. And one last thing about the how great the season is. Look, no respect to Pirtle, but I'll take an old scripture line in this case here, man. In the land of blind, the one-eyed man's king. So, like if we got no one else over 6'10" on the team, there's a lot of rebounds out there for you.
Yeah, and yeah,
That just speaks to this roster.
It does. I mean, like a good example is Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley is like he doesn't have the girth of Pirtle, but he's 6'11". Okay, he's definitely put on weight, so whatever is listed here is probably wrong. I think it's fair to say Evan Mobley is more offensively gifted than Pirtle. I think we would all agree with that.
Yes.
Even from a free throw standpoint, because Pirtle was shooting 71% or something, he is now shooting 68, and it's dipping because the more he is being utilized, some teams like the Clippers are hack-a-shacking him. And again, I don't know why you would run that play with Pirtle and then see how it went and then say, you know what? Let's do it again. Right? Like, I just... Okay, boss.
No, but this was the thing with RJ in the Denver game. When they grabbed the rebound, they had a timeout left. They didn't use it. He trusted RJ just to go down. I think he probably expected RJ to take it to the rim. RJ took a pull-up three. I get how if he's one of your star players, you kind of live with it. But at the same time, if you called a timeout, you might have been able to draw something up to get a better shot and maybe a better play because he took a contested pull-up three, and that was Porter in his face. So it's just time and time again that this staff has cost them some games. They literally could be 4-6 right now. You could have beat Denver twice. You were right there with the Lakers at home, not in LA, obviously. You were right there with the Clippers too. Like you can make an argument, maybe you're 5-5. I'll go 4.
Coach, don't tease them too much.
Yeah, the guys are playing hard.
No.
I actually think they're playing really hard.
Coach, I'm saying that as much as I would like to believe that, even if we were at full strength, we're not going to be that much better. Because the problem is the execution is just not there, and the offensive skill just isn't there. I agree. They probably would have been maybe the 3-7. Maybe I would have been right. but all in all, like which is why I think it's good to bring in the IQ subject just to wrap it all up with a nice bow. We're struggling. Coach, I'll go to you first before I go into the IQ thing, just to finish off your point though, because I did interrupt you a little bit.
Oh, Emmanuel, quickly.
No. You were talking about how we would be 5-5.
Oh yeah, no. I just think that there's been some really questionable things in terms of the game plan that's been done, particularly in the fourth quarter. The having all kinds of timeouts, not really using one. Remember, Mobo was caught in a play. It might have been against Denver as well. He could have called a timeout because clearly they weren't going anywhere. He could have drew something up and maybe get a decent shot. Same thing with RJ in that same Denver game. And then the Clippers game, of course, the thing with Pirtle. Time and time again, this is not good for development. I get it. There's no expectations. You want to say they're tanking fine. There's no excuse for bad basketball in terms of the amount of turnovers, the fouling. These guys are in bonus. Halfway through every quarter, they are in bonus. You got to attribute some of that to the coaching staff, maybe how they want to play defense. You just can't have your hands all over guys and expect Tony Brothers not to call a foul. So it's just things like that. They got to get better at that because that's not good. That's not helping anybody. Are you going to do that next year when Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or Harper's on the team? That's not going to help their development either.
Do it. Just kidding. Don't do it, please. Okay, so just to wrap it up into IQ. IQ did return. He had, I think, a half of a game that was good. I will caveat this. He is returning from an injury. There might be some conditioning factors that are at play, but I did notice something that made me a little bit concerned. Now, before I continue, and I ask you guys, we're getting kind of longer for this episode. Do you want to save this for another time? Or do you want to split this into another thing? Because we can do that. It is Basketball Rewind, and we can do whatever we want.
For another time, give him some more games before we discuss IQ.
Okay. Yeah, I'll talk about IQ another time then. What I will say to wrap up the episode is, I guess, it's just been interesting to watch. One thing that I am seeing is you are seeing a lot of injuries. I wouldn't read too much into these injuries other than to say, you hope that people get healthy, remain healthy. The injuries are happening in different ways. I mean, like Taylor Hendricks, that was a freak accident. Like, you don't expect that. That's not anything but this, like, it happened. You just, again, you hope that guys just get as healthy as possible, and all these teams are able to play soon. Final thoughts? Coach, I'll go to you, just because you were the last person to speak before me, and then I'll go and give Beyond the final word.
Beyond says, get your popcorn ready. We're gonna keep going with the process. And I'll say this again. I do want to see all these pieces back before we can really make a true assessment. It might be the same assessment that we've said, but at the same time, I'm trying to look more forward into the future to say, well, how is this next top or high pick going to fit with what we have now? That's what I'm mainly looking at.
You trying to turn the page, Coach?
Oh,
Sorry, that was a reference to
reading this book. Oh yeah. Reading this book's been a little tough this year.
Yeah, it has been. Beyond your thoughts, I mean, I won't. Next week we'll go through the remainder of the next 20 games, but I'll give you the final word here. Because I don't see a lot of wins to end the season between now. Sorry, not the season, between now and the next 10 games.
Well, this is what some people wanted. I would suggest just take your Buckleys and just hunker down, man, because this is what it's going to be like. So this is what rebuilding looks like. Nothing else to say about that. I'm enjoying it.
Now, if they are to turn around, it would ideally have to happen quickly. That's all I will say. Because if you get into game 20, I know people are like, oh, we can rip off a whole bunch of games with Scotty Barnes being back. My only warning to people is there's a certain level, there's almost like a mental tax that it takes to lose that much and to lose for that long. And it's really hard to now kind of climb out of that. But the other thing too is, say you have the exact, actually we're at 11 games technically, but say you're at, for the next 10 games, the identical, record. So you go 2-8 and 2-8, you're now, 4-16. To get back to close to 500, because you are probably going to have to be somewhat close to 500, even if you're not quite there, say 5 games out of 500, to make the playoffs. You will be talking about winning at a 70% rate, which is championship level in terms of win percentage, or at least high-end competing level. I don't know if I see that happening, but if you have hope, hold on to it, and we'll catch you on the flip side next week on Basketball Rewind. Like, comment, and subscribe. Try to stay sane. And enjoy the week. Enjoy the week. Take care, people, and stay blessed.